How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a beautiful day or night or whenever you're watching this. I'm here to talk about the Acolyte episode 4. And if you saw my last review, you're going to find out pretty quick that I'm not the biggest fan of the show. So if you are, you do you, enjoy the show, but you may not really care for this video. I'm just giving you fair warning, okay? But I'm a huge Star Wars fan and I like Star Wars fans. You are welcome here. You're welcome to comment, all that stuff. Everyone just be civil, okay? So let's dive right into Acolyte episode 4. It's not much better. I don't even know if I can use that word. Episode 3, in my opinion, was way worse. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in the history of Star Wars. Not much happens in this episode, really. I've got some things that I noticed that I guess I'll touch on. Then I'll talk about kind of the plot overall and then sum up my feelings and maybe what I think going forward. I think that might be a good way to handle this. So I noticed still that the Jedi are still really dumb, and I don't like that. And also they seem really suspicious, and again, I believe that the writers intentionally have done this, and I just despise that personally. I don't like that at all. I don't care if you want to try and make characters nuanced or suggest that, you know, people or organizations aren't perfect. I get it. Again, it's already been done before though. It's like you're not really doing anything clever. You're pretending like you're the first person that's ever thought of this, but your execution of it is just straight up aggravating. It's just like you're trying to annoy fans. You're trying to annoy people who like Jedi. It's like, we get it. They're not perfect, but it just seems like the whole point of the show is to destroy the things that we like about Star Wars. Maybe not, but whatever. So here's the thing. I don't really care at all. I actually strongly so far dislike the character of Vernestra, Master Vernestra, whatever the heck her name is. So I'm not super familiar with the High Republic era. I kind of know a little bit about it, just being a huge Star Wars fan as I am, but I haven't read the books or the comics. You know, I've read some little synopsis stuff and whatever. But anyway, I could be wrong, but I believe that she's supposed to be a pretty popular character, and if so, I have no idea why, at least from what I've seen in this show, I find her to be really irritating. I just think she's unlikable. Her attitude is weird. She's always, I feel like, cutting off Soul or whatever he suggests. She's just like, no, that's not gonna work, or no, we need to do this. And he's like, well, let's talk to the High Council. And she's like, no, they can't know, because then if they know, they gotta tell the Republic and then we'll look bad. And it's like, well, why is that up to you to decide whether the Jedi look bad or good? Isn't that up to the High Council? Isn't that the point? Like, it's just weird. It's like, is she supposed to be good? Is she supposed to be dumb? Is she supposed to have a sinister plan? Like, I don't understand. She doesn't give reasoning other than it will make the Jedi look bad. And I don't understand why that's her responsibility to decide whether the Jedi look bad or good. I think that's so bizarre. And I just feel like she's arrogant. I feel like everything that she does and says, which is still pretty minimal, there's not much to this show, but whatever, the attitude, maybe it's the acting, the way it comes off, it's just like, I don't like you. You seem like you're full of yourself and you know what's best for everybody around you. And we get to see as they deliberate early on with Master Vernestra or whatever, that we see Ki-Adi-Mundi. You know, if you're not really into Star Wars lore, you may not know who that is. He's Conehead Jedi. And there's a lot of stuff going on YouTube, threads, the whole internet is talking about it, and I'm sure you've already seen several viewpoints concerning this. Mine is that it's just dumb. You can say what you want. Some people are like, oh, you're making too big a deal about it. It's like, well, it does break lore. Okay, episode 1 is lore. It is canon. And then you're like, well, but then it's EU lore that they're breaking because people are arguing about his age. He's not supposed to be alive during this time. He's born in, like, I think 93 BBY, which is before the Battle of Yavin. People are like, oh, that's EU. Well, I saw a YouTuber point out that on an official, like, episode 1 trading card, that was his age. So that's still, again, within canon. Yeah, it might list that in other EU books or sources or whatever. But materials that came out with the canon movie, I would consider to be canon. Whatever. Ultimately, I'm not going to argue about precisely when the dude was born. Whatever. It's still annoying to me that he's alive during this time, and then he has the line in episode 1 where he says, you know, impossible, the Sith have been extinct for a millennium. Because there's so many potential things that just would frustrate you. Because he's there and they're talking about the whole mission, and he overhears Vanessa like, everyone be quiet. Now, again, they don't know exactly what's going on. They don't know if it's a Sith or just a dark side user or, you know, a Knight of Ren or the Ren, Smilo Ren, as people have been calling the guy, which I think is pretty funny. So it's like, yeah, he may not know all the details, but you would think leading up to the events of episode 1 that he would either find out or, you know, suspect something, unless he's just dumb, or if he's just corrupt. All of these options, though, are terrible to me. Like, do you not, like, I feel like most Star Wars fans feel that way. It's like, because people are like, oh, don't make a big deal out of it. And it's like, but what is the point of having him in there other than to just have a cameo and be like, oh, I know what, that Jedi looks familiar. Otherwise, you know, you might be trying to just, once again, paint the Jedi as these people who just keep secrets and could have prevented this and just make them look worse. It's like, I don't like the idea that Ki-Adi-Mundi potentially knew all this stuff and just kept his mouth shut, or maybe he was complicit in something and didn't want people to know. Like, I think that's just so dumb. Wow, I talked way too much about that. I'm sorry. I already expected them to do random stuff like that doesn't really matter, but kind of does, but doesn't seem to affect this episode as a whole or the series as a whole, at least as far as we know so far. And again, I don't expect much from them in continuity or expanding on characters and lore. The episode itself is just flipping boring, guys. Like, I'm sorry. Nothing happens, hardly at all. Basically, 2 things happen, okay? They all go to the planet, I think it's called Kofar, whatever, where Kelnaka is, the Wookiee. So May and the apothecary dude, I forget his name, I don't really care, they go to this planet because they're hunting him down. And then the Jedi are like, hey, we need to go find Kelnaka because she's probably going to go kill him. So they go to the planet. So that's one thing that happens. And then there's, you know, walking, and there's cringy dialogue and awkward scenes. And this, again, in the scenes, essentially nothing happens. So, I mean, so that's the majority of the episode. And, you know, people are already pointing out the pronoun thing. And it's, you know, they've now introduced pronouns into Star Wars. They actually already introduced it in Tales of the Empire. Now, if you want to argue about animation versus live action or something like that. So first in animation, but this is the first time in live action. Okay, you did it. Moving on. So now we got everyone on the planet. Now what? Basically nothing. Like, the next thing that happens is the villain, who, again, we don't know for sure if this is a Sith or just a dark side user, because he's only been in, like, literally, like, I think maybe 2 scenes at all in 4 episodes. He shows himself to the Jedi. Those are the 2 things. Everyone goes to the same planet, he shows himself to the Jedi, and then cut, the end. And it's supposed to be like a cliffhanger ending, and it's funny. People are like, oh my gosh, that ending. You know, the people who are, you know, fans of the Disney era or fans of the show, they're like, what a cliffhanger, I gotta see what happens next. Well, the next thing that happens is a lightsaber battle. So, I mean, I'm not trying to diss that, that's cool, I like lightsaber battles, but it's just like, why are you waiting so long for anything to happen? And why do we care? Like, no one knows who this master is, this Sith guy is, in terms of, like, where he comes from and his motivation. It is most likely the apothecary guy. And it's quite obvious. They wrote him to have dialogue in such a way that makes him super suspicious. And you never see him and May with the master together. And she asks him, even in the episode, like, I think, have you seen his face? Or do you know who he is? Or something like that. And he's like, of course I don't. Now listen, if it's not him, I don't even care. It's just, that would be, in Disney fashion, a massive bait and switch. But whoever he is, even if he's not the apothecary dude, it's like, why should I care? Like, you're already, by the time that you reveal who this person is, you're technically now over halfway into the season. There's not much time left. And what are you gonna do to make that compelling or interesting? Or his connection and, like, how he even found May? Like, you guys are running out of time. And I just don't even think you have anything interesting to do or say with these characters. So that's the basically it for the episode. Literally, those are the two things. They all go to the same planet. He shows himself. That's the episode. I'm still confused by the whole thing. When May is there and she realizes that Jedi are there and that her sister Osha is alive, all of a sudden she's like, you know what? My sister's alive. That changes everything. I'm gonna go turn myself into the Jedi. And the apothecary guy's like, what? Why does that change everything? And I'm like, I actually agree with you, evil dude. Well, how does that change anything? You know, and I've, once again, I've seen the cope. I've seen all the reasons of why she would do that, and I'm not buying it at all. It is so unearned. And I even made a post about it, and I was like, listen, I'm not against the trope of like an evil person coming back to the good side, to the light, you know, being redeemed or changing their ways. But it's totally unearned in this episode and in this show as a whole. Like, the girl was going to kill her sister, but people are trying to say like, oh, but she loves her sister. And I'm like, no, she was going to kill her sister. And she's hated the Jedi ever since she was a little girl. Like, why would she just stop hating the Jedi all of a sudden because her sister's alive and because like her love for her is stronger? I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it, because like even the one time she saw Osha didn't stun her and then she drove away. They didn't even like talk to each other. So why am I to believe that she loves Osha still? You know, like you can see more from the conversation that Osha has and the way she looks at May, that she seems to care for May, but I don't get that from May at all. Like, May doesn't seem to care from what we've seen, and there really hasn't been any interaction since the revelation that they're both alive. There hasn't been anything like, May, I'm sorry I didn't become a witch that night, and I still love you, would you forgive me? Or like, May being like, I'm so glad you're alive, I only meant to scare you. I didn't really mean to start a fire. Like, there's been no conversation. There's been no like, hey, come back to the good side. Stop following whoever this master of yours is. There's been no like reason for May to just all of a sudden be like, you know what? I'm gonna turn myself into the Jedi. And then the apothecary guy's like, he'll kill you. And she's like, nah, not if you can't find me. And it's just like, do you know anything about the dude at all that you're serving, or how powerful he is, or how people can track people in this universe? And apparently you need to have a little creature to do that, which is fine, whatever. I'm not saying I hate that, but I'm just saying, like, it's just overall hardly anything happens, and what does happen is super bizarre and confusing and makes no sense. I mean, I still think Saul is a decent character, but still, like, we've got time. I don't expect for him to remain amazing, because there's also a line that he tells Osha in this episode of like, you know, once we find May, I'll tell you everything that happened that night. It'll all be fine. It's like, I doubt it. I'm sure whatever is revealed is actually going to make everything more complicated. Dude, I don't even know. This show is so weird. And to try to be fair, I'm going to do my best to not hate on things like special effects and costuming. I really don't think it's that bad. I have issues with some of it, but overall it's pretty good. I thought the planet they were on, you know, nothing too complex. It's just like a forest planet, but I thought it looked pretty cool, you know? So I'm not gonna just try and tear apart every like technical aspect. I don't need to, because to me, a lot of the time, even more important than that is the story, and it is the characters. And with $180 million, with a brand like Star Wars, I expect it to look decent. Like, it should at least look decent. It should look incredible, honestly, but whatever. It's forget all that fluffy stuff. It's just like the story and the characters are not working, man. One final thing I will say too is people were like, oh, that ending's crazy. And all I have to say is the villain is so overpowered. Like, it's bizarre. He literally used the Force to blow back like 8 Jedi. It's like, do these Jedi not know how to use the Force at all? It's like, I expect you to be able to maybe push back 1, possibly 2 if you're really strong. But you push back like literally every Jedi with the Force. And again, what's bad about that is it just makes the Jedi look awful and like they have no skill or competence. It's like no one thought to like stand their ground and use the Force to like push back. Even if they slid back on their feet, that would be something compared to just all of them just literally being blown off their feet. Dude, Palpatine didn't even do that in Revenge of the Sith when like 5 Jedi Masters came to fight him. Are you trying to tell me that this Smilo Ren guy, whatever he is is more powerful than Emperor Palpatine? Nonsense. Like, and if he is, you've done nothing to prove this. You've done nothing to make me buy into the fact that this is some crazy dark side user that is this powerful. You literally just throw him in at the end of an episode after not having seen him for like 3 episodes, and he just does this one move that is super powerful, and I'm supposed to be interested? Like, I just think that's so weird. It's so funny to me. Like, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he'll be some crazy interesting character. Maybe he'll have a cool backstory. Maybe it'll make sense. I'm not trying to be rude. I just highly, highly doubt it. There is nothing so far in the writing of this show that proves to me that they are capable of writing something that interesting or coherent. So those are my thoughts on episode 4 of The Acolyte. Thank you guys for listening this long. I really want to know your thoughts. I've had some cool comments on my videos, some interesting perspective. You are welcome, no matter if you liked it, didn't like it, hate it, love it, whatever. Like, you're welcome to join this community. Please be civil in the comments. And thankfully you guys have been so far, and I so appreciate that. I still love the fans. I still enjoy Star Wars. But feel free to express how you feel about the show, and if you're looking forward to anything in particular, that would be cool too. I'd like to know that. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching and taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, if you found any value in it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.